They seated me at table 18, right next to the fire exit. The white tablecloth didn't match the others, and my name card simply read, Family Supporter. No last name. No role. Just a placeholder, like me. The air smelled of roses and catered salmon, but under it was something else, something sour. The dress I wore clung awkwardly. I bought it last minute, during a flash sale, because no one thought to ask my size. Celeste greeted me with a polished smile, her eyes already darting away. Grant nodded, mechanical, like signing a check. The spotlight bathed them both in golden light. No one looked in my direction, except for a young server who offered me a glass of Chardonnay with a kind "you okay?" in her eyes. I nodded. Didn't sip. Didn't breathe. I was there, but not in it. Invited to fund it. Not to feel it. Middle school lunch. That's what came to mind. I had borrowed coral lipstick from my best friend, thinking it made me look mature. Marjorie had shown up with my homework and caught sight of me at the table. Without a word, she reached across the tray, yanked me by the chin, and scrubbed the color off with a paper napkin. My classmates stared. I remember the sting, not on my lips, but somewhere deeper. Men don't marry girls who paint their faces, she had said, brushing invisible dust from my shoulder. Today, I wore lipstick again. For the first time since. It wasn't red, more like a bruised rose. I didn't choose it to look pretty. I wore it like armor. And now, I could feel it drying, cracking slightly, as if reminding me not to smile too wide. Then she took the mic. It wasn't scheduled. Dina, the planner, blinked rapidly from the sidelines, her clipboard shifting in her arms. Marjorie's voice rang sharp through the speakers. She's not the bride, but at least she finally wore makeup. Laughter broke across the hall like dropped glass. Loud. Quick. Instinctive. They weren't laughing at a joke. They were laughing at me. Celeste chuckled, tilting her head slightly, as if to soften the blow. Grant smirked. No one said anything. No one stopped it. My fingers twitched under the table. I counted my breath. 3, 2, 1. I smiled. It was faint. Hollow. But I knew how to survive this. I'd done it before. That wasn't the first jab this week. 4 days ago, I got an email from Dina that wasn't meant for me. It listed me as logistics coordinator. My name wasn't there, just confirm LV catering contribution. That same day, Marjorie emailed me directly, asking for a bank receipt. She ended it with, "Thanks, Laurel. That's not my name. It never has been." I used to think those things were accidents. Now I understand their tactics. I wasn't a guest. I was a line item. They hadn't asked if I'd attend. They asked when the checks would clear. The room blurred. Laughter faded like a dying engine. The wine glass in my hand felt slick, then solid. I looked at it, long stem, perfect base, and imagined it shattering. Not from rage. Just. From gravity. Not again. The whisper didn't come from outside me. It was internal, ancestral. A quiet refusal. My father had once said, not long before the cancer took his voice, "Don't disappear just to keep others comfortable." I remembered it now. Not as a quote. As a call. I sat still, even as the noise returned. I blinked once. My body remembered not to cry. The decision didn't happen like thunder. It came in the quiet. I stood, smoothed my dress, walked toward the exit. My heels didn't click. My presence barely registered. Behind me, they laughed. The music surged into another upbeat chorus. Glasses clinked. I stepped into the hallway, pulled out my phone, and opened the Cloud app. My fingers hovered over a folder I'd created months ago. One I named only for me. Invoices and proof. I tapped it. The screen glowed. The truth waited. The night after the wedding, I sat in my hotel room, heels kicked off, dress unzipped halfway, and phone in hand. My inbox stared back like an accountant's ledger. No thank you, no warm note. Just PDF attachments, transaction confirmations, and subject lines that read like billing memos: venue deposit confirmed, florist invoice adjusted, catering final tally. Every one of them forwarded by Marjorie. One of the earliest emails referred to me as Laurel. Then a follow-up, oops. Autocorrect. But no apology. Scrolling further down, I saw an invoice from Petal and Fern Floral Design. My card. My name. My zip. And the comment, confirmed by family sponsor. I blinked slowly. It wasn't just about money. It was about message. I wasn't family, I was financing. That's when it clicked, they didn't invite me. They just billed me. The slideshow started as the guests cut into their sea base. A montage of childhood memories flickered across the reception hall's rented screen. Baby photos, backyard summers, Halloween costumes. Celeste on a pony. Celeste in a tutu. Celeste with Grant at prom. Even Marjorie in the hospital holding a swaddled infant. But not me. Not once. I leaned back in my chair. Across the table, Arden turned to me and whispered, "Did they forget you?" I shook my head, eyes locked on the glowing screen. You can't forget what you never saw. As the applause broke out for a childhood photo of Celeste in braces, I stood, quietly made my way to the bathroom. My fingers trembled, not from anger, but from clarity. It wasn't a mistake. It was a system. For days earlier, I had stood near the fitting mirror while Celeste twirled in her dress. Marjorie had sipped from a green juice, eyes calculating. Some girls marry, she had said to Celeste, others just help pay for the wedding. I had pretended not to hear. Just like I had pretended not to hear her years ago, when she'd told me, "You'll end up alone with a cat and a career." She'd said it with a sigh, like she was reading a forecast she couldn't change. Now, at the reception, I watched Grant make the rounds, a whiskey in hand. He chuckled to one of his friends, "Leora's got the best job of all, bankrolling this circus." No one laughed. But no one stopped him either. Dina approached with a clipboard, looking flustered. "Hi, Leora. Can you sign off on the linen adjustment for tomorrow?" I stared at her. "I'm not staff." Her face flushed. "Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed you've been so involved." I took the clipboard. "Apparently, I'm logistics." She hesitated. Then said softly, "It's under primary sponsor." "Is that correct?" I signed it anyway. With a hand that didn't shake. The pen felt heavy. Not because of what it was, but what it meant. Later, in the hallway outside the ballroom, Arden found me again. Her expression looked borrowed from someone else, less confident, more conflicted. "Leora," she said quietly. "I probably shouldn't say this." I waited. She looked down. "Your mom told Aunt Janice Leora was never built for love." She was built to pay. I nodded. It didn't sting. Not anymore. That sounds about right. Arden hesitated. I don't think it is. That moment, small as it was, mattered. Not because she defended me, but because she saw me. Back in the hotel room, I opened my banking app. Found the wire transfer, $12,800 to the venue. The comment from Marjorie read, "From our generous sponsor." I took a screenshot. Filed it under a folder I created months ago, titled Evidence, Quiet Wars. Email chains. Misnamed CCs, forwarded bills. They all went in. Not for revenge. For record. For my memory, so I wouldn't question it again. So no one could say I imagined it. They will not gaslight this away, I whispered to myself. The reception had wound down. The band had packed. The cake was a mess of frosting and crumbs. Celeste came to hug me goodbye, champagne breath and a satisfied glow on her cheeks. "Thank you, sis," she murmured. "I don't know how we could have done this without you." "I know," I said. She handed me a folded sheet by mistake, tucked inside her gift bag. I unfolded it. Final invoice, photographer gratuity. Amount due, $320. I looked at it. Then looked at her. "Let me know how much my presence costs next time," I said. The music had dulled to soft jazz when I returned to the reception hall. My chair sat oddly askew from table 18. Where my name once was, a new card read, Guest 18. Just that. No name, no title, no connection. The table sat closest to the emergency exit. A cold draft slipped through every time a caterer passed. The chair was angled away from the stage, almost as if I was meant to look at the door, not the celebration. I sat down quietly, the edge of the linen napkin brushing my knee. Across the room, Marjorie howled with laughter. Her teeth flashed beneath the chandeliers like polished judgment. My fingers found the edge of the new name card. I didn't rip it. I just tilted it upright. Like a gravestone. Even in her joy, I whispered, "I'm the punchline." My eyes drifted to the projector screen above the dance floor. The seating chart flickered on screen for late arrivals, names with pastel icons, hearts and bows beside Celeste and Grant. Next to mine, a blank square. No icon. No marker. Just guest 18. A pause in the slideshow caught Celeste's eye. She turned briefly toward me, smiled faintly, but her gaze slid away before it reached my expression. The apology was there. Silent. And nowhere near enough. Dina passed nearby, clutching a clipboard like a shield. She avoided eye contact. Her posture said, "Don't ask me." But her silence screamed. From across the room, I heard someone murmur, "Who's the woman sitting alone?" I knew the answer. Just not the kind you say aloud. A therapist once told me, families that need scapegoats can't survive truth. At the time, I thought it was poetic. Now I knew, it was procedural. Walking toward the restroom, I paused near a partially closed door and heard Marjorie's voice, soft and syrupy. "She's always been different. Doesn't need gratitude, she likes helping." The words settled like perfume and poison. Another woman laughed. "You raised two good girls." Marjorie chuckled. "One married well. The other well, at least she writes the checks." My hand gripped the sink edge, cold porcelain grounding me. In the mirror, I saw a woman with smudged mascara and sharp eyes. The kind of sharp that doesn't draw blood, but remembers where it would. I returned to my table, passing a folded wedding program abandoned on a seat. Celeste's bio glowed in ornate script, the golden heart of the family. Grant's, the perfect match. I flipped to the back. A list of acknowledgements, venue, florals, catering. Dina, even the cake decorator. No mention of Leora. No thanks. Not even a typo. I laughed. It came out hollow and strange. A sound without place. Erasure isn't new, I thought. It's tradition. Dinner had grown cold by the time Celeste found her way over. Her voice was low, hesitant. I didn't know they'd seat you here. I looked her dead in the eye. Didn't you? She faltered. No denial. No explanation. Marjorie swept in just then, all sequins and red wine. She filled her glass and clinked it against mine. To family, she said. The ones who show up. I raised my glass but didn't drink. Cheers, I said. My voice didn't rise, but it cut clean. A photographer snapped a photo just then, me, half-lit, half-shadowed. The kind of image that would never make the album. Later, when the tables were half-cleared and the band was packing up, I found myself back at table 18, folding napkins out of habit. Arden slid into the seat beside me. Your name was never printed, she said quietly. Mom told the planner not to include it. Said it would confuse the guest layout. I nodded once. I figured. She reached for my hand, but I was already gathering up discarded programs, folding them neatly into my clutch. Every erasure is evidence, I said. I'm documenting everything. Back in the hotel room, I sat cross-legged on the bed. I opened the shared family photo album on the cloud. There it was, table 18. My place card now labeled guest_18.jpg. The original image, my name, gone. I didn't react. I didn't gasp. I just whispered, they're rewriting the story. And tapped save as. But I'm keeping the drafts. The morning after the wedding was quiet enough to hear my own thoughts. The kind of quiet that used to scare me, now it felt earned. I woke in the small suite I'd rented, the faint scent of rose perfume from last night's guests still hanging in the air. The laughter, the applause, the camera flashes, they had already turned into echoes. My phone buzzed against the nightstand. 2 voicemails. Dina's voice was soft, uncertain, hey, just checking in. Are you okay? Then Marjorie's, clipped and cold, we need to talk. I didn't press play. Instead, I opened my laptop, that familiar blue glow casting a halo across the sheets. I clicked the folder, invoices and proof. Inside, rows of digital receipts, screenshots, and payment confirmations stared back at me like witnesses. One statement read, family contribution, venue payment. Marjorie's handwriting. They didn't owe me thanks. They owed me truth. Have you ever chosen silence instead of argument? It feels like surrender until you realize silence has an echo. And sometimes, it's louder than shouting. By early afternoon, I was sitting in Marjorie's library. She'd called it a family discussion. I came because I wanted to see the battlefield for myself. The room was perfect. Everything always was. Mahogany shelves, dustless frames, a tea set steaming between us. She smiled the kind of smile that made people forget the knife she held behind it. Sit, she said. We need to restore some harmony. While she poured tea, my eyes caught the label on a folder across the shelf, Vance Royce Assets 2023. The kind of thing most daughters wouldn't notice, but I wasn't most daughters anymore. I stood, walked casually toward it. May I? I asked, already opening it. Celeste walked in then. Her gaze flickered to the folder, then to me. A pause. Her throat moved as she swallowed. Inside, spreadsheets, account transfers. Lines and numbers mapping money that once carried my signature now rerouted to Grant Royce's trust. Quiet theft disguised as family bookkeeping. Celeste's voice was small. Mom, I'll let you two talk. And she was gone. I took a quick photo with my phone and slid the folder back exactly where it had been. Imbalance is a ledger, I thought. And I just found the line they erased. What do you do when you find proof no one asked you to find? You take it. You hold it steady. You stop pretending not to see. Later, on the balcony, the harbor wind bit against my skin. Marjorie stood beside me, perfectly composed. Why are you doing this? She asked, voice sweetened to hide the panic. It's just family. Because family owes me what you call just, I said. Her smile cracked for the first time. You'll regret this, Leora. I looked at the water, still and endless. I've already calculated the cost of regret, I said. It's yours now. She turned, her perfume trailing behind her, disappearing into the house. I stayed, watching the horizon blur with the city skyline. The silence wasn't weakness anymore. It was armor. When was the moment you realized that saying nothing was costing you everything? That evening, I returned to my apartment and opened my email. To Fiona Greer. Subject, proceed. I typed, temporary restraining order on funds labeled family support. Effective immediately. Fiona's reply came within minutes. Understood. You'll have the filings by Monday. I closed the laptop, pulled on my gloves, and switched off every light. My reflection in the dark window looked foreign, colder, sharper, realer. This ends the quiet part, I whispered into the dark. They taught me that silence was survival. But silence had taught me something else, power. At 11 p.m., a soft knock. Arden stood there, holding a paper cup that steamed in the chill. Latte, she said, smiling awkwardly. I figured you wouldn't sleep. I wasn't planning to, I said. She sat beside me, eyes on the floor. I was scared to say anything before. Afraid I'd lose what little I had. But I can't keep pretending anymore. I reached for her hand. Thank you, I said simply. For a moment, we sat in quiet companionship, the hum of Charleston seeping through the glass. The city pulsed, alive, indifferent, endless. I thought, I'm not the only one whose name doesn't matter. Sometimes, the courage isn't in fighting alone, it's in letting someone stand beside you when you thought you had to protect them. When was the last time you let someone help you? My phone buzzed again. Mom, home. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, her name fading back into black. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the photo of the spreadsheet. Attached it to an email. To Fiona. Subject, Exhibit A. Then I hit send. The band's saxophone faded into a memory of jazz as the guests clicked their champagne flutes together in a rehearsed ceremony of praise. I sat near the back of the ballroom, a pale figure in a sea of sequins and tuxedos, my eyes scanning rather than slumping. The text message felt light in my pocket, funds frozen. Confirmation in place. I felt the weight behind it. I slid the phone back into my clutch, exhaled once, then straightened in my dress. Marjorie strode forward, microphone in hand, smile bright. Tonight, she began, voice trembling, polished, primed, I'm grateful for everyone who made this dream possible. My pulse echoed. I thought, have you ever known the punchline before the room even laughed? Then it came. She pivoted toward me, palm open, the mix cord dragging like a tether. And my youngest not the bride, but at least she finally wore makeup. The hall burst into hollow laughter. Celeste coughed into her hand. Grant's smirk broke into a grimace. Arden ducked her eyes. Dina paused filming mid-frame. I felt nothing and everything. A stillness gathered in my chest like ice melting. I rose. My heels clicked. My dress moved with me. The band stopped, and whispers filled the space. What is she doing? I took the mic. You've had your turn, Mom. My voice was steady, not loud, but it cut. The feedback buzzed like static in the control room of a stadium. I held the moment. Let me finish what you started. My phone screen flashed onto the projector. Lines of receipts, bank transfers, emails labeled from Leora Vance. Gasps. Eyes wide. Marjorie's face drained of color. Every floral arrangement. The photographer. The venue. The dress, all paid by me. Silence. Celeste pleaded, Leora, please. No, I replied quietly. Please what? Continue funding my erasure? I turned slowly toward her mother. You said I'd end up alone with my career. You were half right. But I'm not alone, I'm aware. The guests froze. The photographer held his lens like a gavel. You taught me silence was grace. Tonight, it's just evidence. The room unraveled. Marjorie reached for the mic. Her voice snapped. Enough. You don't get to narrate this one, I said coolly. You built this night on my labor, my money, my absence. Consider it unfunded. I felt the collective breath of the crowd shift. I've withdrawn every cent. The contracts are void. Murmurs surged like tidal wave. Grant cursed softly. Fiona nodded in the back. Legal team locked. You'll destroy this family. Marjorie hissed. If it were me, you already would've, I answered. I'm just turning on the lights. The chandeliers flickered. Cameras whipped around. I let the mic slip from my fingers. It hit the stage with a dull thud, metal on wood echoing like shattering glass. Barefoot, I stepped off the stage, my shoes dangling from one hand. The music failed to resume. A void opened where applause should have been. Outside, Dina held her camera still. It's online, she breathed to Fiona. I paused beneath the foyer lights. I said aloud, though no one heard, let the truth go viral. And I walked into the night, not as the erased sister, but as someone incandescent in her own name. The morning light in Charleston came thin and gray, creeping through the blinds like it wasn't sure it belonged there. My phone buzzed against the kitchen counter before the coffee finished brewing. Fiona's voice, calm but threaded with disbelief, the clip hit 2 million views overnight. I looked at the laptop screen, headlines stacking on one another like dominoes. Daughter exposes family at sister's wedding. The price of silence. Grace or grudge? I sipped the coffee, bitter and grounding. They finally saw me, I said softly. The words felt both hollow and freeing. Comments rolled by, some praising, some condemning. I scrolled once, then closed the laptop. The truth didn't need applause, it just needed air. Have you ever told your truth and realized the echo was louder than you expected? Sometimes freedom feels like fatigue wearing a new coat. That afternoon, a courier came. A cream envelope, my mother's handwriting trembling like someone in used to apology. I opened it slowly, breathing in the faint scent of her perfume. I don't know how to love you without trying to fix you, it began. It wasn't guilt. It was justification written in cursive. Sentences looped around themselves, half confession, half defense. She called it a misunderstanding of love. She ended it with, "I hope you find peace in your independence." I read it twice. My eyes didn't sting. "She's still speaking the language of control," I murmured. I placed the letter in a folder marked unanswered. It joined a growing archive, not of pain, but of patterns. Silence wasn't surrender anymore. It was decision. Would you answer a letter that arrived too late to change anything? A week later, Fiona drove me to the hospital. "She collapsed," she said quietly. "Stress-related exhaustion." I stood outside the sliding glass doors, a bouquet trembling in my hands. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and guilt. Through the glass, I saw Celeste walking in with flowers identical to mine. Perfect symmetry. Same bouquet, different heart. "She has her audience," I whispered. Then I turned away. My father's voice echoed from some forgotten memory. "Strength isn't in forgiveness, sweetheart. It's in knowing when not to return." I laid the flowers on a bench near the entrance. The petals looked too alive for that place. Closure wasn't confrontation. It was choice. Do you believe closure always needs an audience? Or can it happen in a parking lot when no one sees? 2 weeks later, I was in Asheville. The air there was cleaner, sharp enough to feel like a reset. My house sat on a hill with fog that drifted like slow breath. In the quiet, I opened my laptop and began typing. The title came first, "The Price of Invisible Labor." By evening, it was online. By morning, comments flooded in, "That was my story too. You put into words what I couldn't." An email followed. Then a podcast request. Then an invitation from a college asking me to speak about emotional autonomy. I said yes. Not for fame, not for revenge, but because clarity deserves a microphone too. Fiona called that night. "You realize you're building something, right?" "This isn't revenge," I said. "It's reclamation." When did you realize healing was louder than revenge? A few days later, Arden showed up in Asheville, wind in her hair, a folder in her hands. "It's a proposal," she said, sitting on the porch beside me. "A foundation in your name, silent fire. For women whose work and worth were erased." The mountain wind carried our laughter off the porch. I looked at the document. "It's strange," I said, "to feel seen without being watched." I signed the first check. That night, Fiona called again. "You've turned pain into infrastructure," she said. "That's legacy. If pain built your foundation, would you tear it down, or build upon it?" The next week, a familiar name appeared in my inbox. Rhea Dawson. We hadn't spoken since high school. She'd found the blog. She wanted to visit. When she arrived, she hugged me tightly. "You always took notes on everything," she said, smiling. "Now those notes are saving people." We sat by the fireplace, years collapsing into warmth. "You didn't just survive them," Rhea said quietly. "You outgrew their world." "That's what light does," I said. "It outgrows the room that tried to contain it." Have you ever realized you became the person your younger self needed? On the morning of the equinox, I walked barefoot through the dewy grass. The mountains glowed faintly pink, the world soft with forgiveness. In my hand, a small envelope addressed to myself. Inside, a single sheet of paper, Leora Vance Consulting, official registration. My name. My story. My rules, I whispered. I took the old family crest necklace from my neck. It felt cold and foreign against my skin. I dropped it into the stream that ran behind the house. It vanished without a sound. Some inheritances are better dissolved, I said, smiling faintly. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of rain and pine. On my blog later that night, I typed the final line. Silence isn't the absence of voice, it's the moment you decide what deserves your words. And for the first time, I pressed publish without hesitation.